Welcome to the January Donovan Show. And today we are going to break down just what's happening in our culture, what's happening in the world. Why is it that we have become susceptible to tyranny in some parts of the world? So today I have a guest that has been in the forefront of the political fight, I would say in Canada primarily, but it's always kind of a fight worldwide. Nico, who is the host of Political Orphan, is going to break this down, the importance of us being part of the fight as women, yes, men too, but as women, and why it's so important for us to have the conversation now before it's a little bit too late. Nico, welcome to the January Donovan Show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and congratulations on your baby Eli. 7 weeks maybe, I think, from the last time we spoke, which is such a great gift. First, I just want to maybe kind of give our guests a little bit of your background. Who is Nico to the world and what brought you to do this work?
I don't know who Nico is to the world. I can't say what people think of me.
Sure. But who's
Although I
Nico to
could
you? Yeah.
have, I could get an idea from the comments that I get. They created a monster years ago. Like, I'm from Canada. I spent half my time in the US though, but during COVID, I'm a sales engineer by trade. During COVID, they wanted me to get vaccinated. I said no. So I lost my career over this and I started creating content. I sat down, I just looked at what my transferable skills were, and I wasn't happy with the way I was being treated because, unlike the US, Canada became tyrannical. We needed a vaccination passport to go everywhere. And my wife and I, back then, we weren't married, but we were capable of going to the grocery store and the pharmacy. That's it. We couldn't go anywhere else legally. So I lost my career, couldn't teach martial arts anymore. And yeah, I moved to the woods, built a gym inside my house, and stayed there for about 2.5 years. And then I started traveling the US. We did about 30 states in the past 3 years, give or take. And yeah, here I am creating content full time now, talking about politics, obviously. I cover a lot of American politics, a lot of Canadian politics, but it always comes down to the importance of nuclear family. Everything I talk about, I always stem it back to the nuclear family, how masculine men are needed, how feminine women are needed. And being a masculine man and saying that, I get a lot of heat for this, but I say to women all the time, a woman cannot teach a boy how to become a man. In the same way as a man cannot teach a little girl how to become a woman. That doesn't take anything away from my wife when I tell her that. As us having a little boy, she can't teach him how to be a man. She can. Only I can do that.
Yeah.
And
And
when we
that's
do
just
have
important.
daughters, it's going to be the same thing. There's things I cannot teach her that I won't be able to teach her, but there's things she can teach my son that I can't teach him, like emotional intelligence. That comes from the feminine energy. That comes from the mother. I can't teach him that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've already said many things I'm going to take apart, but the first thing, the first thing I just want to say is that kudos to your courage, because if it's not for men who have the courage to speak up, I really think America would be just as tyrannical as Canada. I think that Americans are just rebellious by nature, and that saved us. I think Christian men and women saved America. But take me back to sort of how did we get to a point where we were so close to that level of tyranny? Like, where did you see we've gone wrong? And maybe even, reflecting on Americans, how did we even get to that point where we were forced to inoculate ourselves?
Separation of church and state. That's probably where it started. You don't have it as bad in the US. I would argue in the southern state. Like, I spent a lot of time in Texas, Alabama, North Carolina, Tennessee, New Mexico. Not New Mexico, but Arizona. And it's very different from the rest of the country because we did a lot of the upper states as well, like upper states as in more northern states. And you can tell there's a massive difference between the states that are based in Christianity and the states that are not.
Yeah.
They're more woke, if you will. And unfortunately, Canada is California on steroids. You guys think that California is crazy. We're 10 years ahead of the craziness of California. Imagine our old prime minister was Kamala Harris, was the equivalent of Kamala Harris, and he got to rule Canada for 10 years. So imagine where you would be 10 years under Kamala Harris. And
I can't
yeah,
even.
Your face is pretty much self-explanatory,
I
right?
mean, I just can't even. But like, how is it? Because if you think about it, the truth is that it's blue states and red states. That's
Mm-hmm.
sort of where their divide is. And I always just say to people, if we're not political, then who's going to fight for the policy
Mm-hmm.
that's ordered, that's from our Lord? Like, it's not. And sometimes it's a lot harder to even convince women to do this, but that's another conversation. But what do you think happened to Canada that's happening in California? Is it that people just started to not care? Is it that separation of state, then it became so godless? Like, I understand the separation of state and people sort of use that maybe as an excuse, but there's also this sort of complacency that I feel like played a part in allowing people who are you can't have a dictator unless you have puppets. So what happened to Canada, aka California, at least down the road, where people just said, yeah, we'll sign up for this trans movement, climate act, I mean, everything. It was sort of like, where did this come from?
Removal of God. If you look under any Marxist regime like we have in Canada, we are very Marxist. We're very socialist in Canada. So is California, which California is a great example, right? And as soon as you remove God from the
Yeah.
equation, what's the first thing that Marxist movements do? They remove God from the equation and replace it by Big Brother, by the government.
Hmm.
Then they start removing the men from the family. They start saying that men are not needed, that women can do it by themselves. And then what's the third step? Men can be women and women can be men. It's always the same. If you look throughout history, those are always the three steps. You distort reality. You remove, because at the end of the day, when just read the Bible, as soon as you remove God from the equation, you become God.
Yeah.
Meaning you allow yourself to do whatever you want
You
and
are
it
God.
doesn't have any consequences. It's very easy to do evil things when you don't have to report to someone, when you
Mhm.
don't have to explain yourself to somebody.
Yeah.
You can just do whatever you feel, and that is always the problem when your feelings
Become
get
God.
to dictate your actions. Yes.
Mhm.
And that's what you're seeing in California, right? You could never convince anybody that it has somewhat of common sense that a woman can have a penis. It's nonsensical. It makes no sense. It makes zero sense. But if you allow people to dictate policies based on emotions, everything becomes possible. And this is the brilliance of the new type of Marxist movement, because if you look at history, Karl Marx was about the have-nots and the haves.
Mhm.
So it was a concrete thing. It was based on money. What do you have? If you have more than I do, you're a have. If I'm a have-not, I need to have more. I'm a worker. I need to make more money. So it was tangible. But what they did under Obama in the US is to rethink the way Marxism is being applied on a feeling base, which can
Mhm.
be changed on any given time because it is not attached to something that is concrete.
Mhm.
It's not something that you can hold. Money
Yeah.
is tangible. Feelings are not. So it's brilliant when you think about it. It's absolutely brilliant what they did. And now, but you look at what happens. You look at California. The day that God left the building, that he was not important anymore, that the government took the place of God, everything is possible afterwards. Men don't need women, and then men can be women. It's absolutely insane when you
It's
think about
insane.
it, but it's brilliant.
Well, I mean, you're right. It is kind of a brilliant strategy because feelings are so
Mm-hmm.
subjective and feelings become God, and then everybody's their own God. And it baffles me though, because it's so illogical. And what baffles me with that movement is that how do people sign up for it? Like, do we have generations of people who do not know how to do critical thinking? I mean, you just think it's pretty kind of like, okay, like it's really not, hard to say, well, you know what? Our biology actually dictates the fact that we're distinct. Like, it's logical, like you don't mutilate a 12-year-old. It's so logical. There's mental illness, but it's almost as though, I keep thinking, is our education system so bad that there's no
Yep.
critical thinking, that's hijacked any kind of common sense, which is why Trump won, because it really is common sense, Nico. Like, what? Why are people signing up for it? Like, it's so illogical. I can't
Yeah,
wrap my mind around
but
it.
when your opinions are not based on logic, but they're based on emotion, everything makes sense. Like I got a perfect example. I got a friend of mine that's very strong Christian man out of Alabama. And he is a professor. He teaches history. his two kids are homeschooled. He works for the he works in a school trying to help other kids that don't
Yeah.
have parents like him and his wife, yet his kids are not in the system because he knows how evil the system
Yeah.
is. Because
Yeah.
look at your education system in the US, and it's the same thing in Canada. They're not teaching you critical thinking, they're teaching you to regurgitate
Yeah. What to think.
what they're telling you.
Yeah.
The better you are at regurgitating, the best notes you're going to get, the best results they're going to give you. So for all intended purposes, it is an indoctrination center. Schools are not, you look back at the Greeks, they wanted debate, they wanted civil discourse, they wanted to be able to challenge your ideas. And this is why the show that I run, I'm a Christian conservative that records for 2 hours a day with an atheist liberal.
I would like to, I'm gonna just
But
pick
this is
your
why
brain.
this is why we do it, because we both agree that there's a discourse that needs to happen. The left is only sane if there's a sane right, and in Canada we don't have it. Our conservatives are as liberal as your Democrats.
I can't even imagine.
We every
Pro-choice then?
there's something. Oh yes, oh absolutely. Our Pierre Poliev, which is the leader of the Conservative Party, Big C, says he no problem with abortion. To him, it's totally normal. But the average Canadian will never debate abortion because it is something that is so normal here that it is socially normal. I don't condone this at all. It's murder, plain and simple. But it is not something that's even discussed. This is not even a point of discussion between conservatives and liberals, between the equivalent of a Democrat and a Republican. It's not up for discussion because this is a woman's choice. There's nothing evil about murdering the preborn, murdering babies. This is not evil in Canada.
Do you? I mean, it's baffling to me, in so many levels, and that's the conservative movement. How much of it, Nico, do you think is it that both men and women are so overwhelmed, they're so complacent that in the face of evil they are silent? Like it to me, that is the greatest tragedy, is the complacency in the face of evil, because maybe once upon a time they're like, yeah, it's not a big deal, but they stay quiet and silent. Like, how did Canada come to that point where maybe the good faithful people have been so shut down so much, or there's just such a tyranny that it's like, hey, you better just be quiet?
Forget Canada. I would argue that in the US is the same
Yeah,
thing.
you're
I've
right.
traveled 30 states, so I've traveled more than 99.9999% of Americans have visited their own country.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, we did coast to coast to coast twice. I driven like 20,000 miles hauling a massive trailer behind us. And I don't see much of a
Yeah,
difference
I
unless
guess.
you're in the very Christian state, like in Alabama, for example. There's not much difference between Canada and the US when it comes to morality. And unfortunately, the main reason for this is Christians has gone soft. The
That's it.
Christian movement, the Christian religion in North America is what I like to call lukewarm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of subjects that they will not touch, like the trans agenda. They will not touch that in church. And I've been to dozens of churches throughout the US. Not once, I don't care where they were, not once have I heard a pastor speak against trans ideology, because they don't have the balls to speak about it. They don't have the courage to address it, because everybody, it's one of those, it's not a 90-10 opinion. Everybody has an opinion on this, and it's never a gray area. It's either you're for it or you're strongly against it. There's no in between, but we all know that it's wrong. If you're not mentally ill, you know that it is a problem. But unfortunately, even Christians are not addressing it. They don't have the balls to address it. And what's interesting is I was not brought up a Christian. I discovered Christianity in my, 43, about 3 or 4 years ago.
It's just fascinating to
But
me.
I'm more Christian than 99.9% of Christians out there, because I call out those pastors. How many times have I been in discussion with pastors and told them, you're wrong?
Yeah.
You're supposed to call that out, but yet I'm the bad person because I'm covered in tattooed. Like, I was a drug addict. I was an alcoholic. I'm a high school dropout. I went back in my 20s. I was a thief. I've done so much wrong in my life. And at one point I got out of it. And in my 40s, I found Christ.
The
I
mercy
got
of God,
rebaptized.
Nico.
But this is, if you read your Bible, this is who Christ hung out with.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
hung out with guys like me trying to change my heart to follow him.
Hmm.
Yet those same pastors that are goody two-shoe pastors will not listen to a guy like me because I will call them out for their hypocrisy. They try to keep people in their seats. They're trying to keep cattle in the church to have an audience, but they don't have the courage that it takes to bring new people like me that needed their help.
Yeah. So you said the word courage. How much of the emasculinization of men you think plays out to the lack of courage of our pastors, of men and women? Like, okay, let me just point this out. Maybe some point in your story, you have developed courage. And so when you became a Christian, that courage became virtue. Maybe you use courage and, maybe not so a thief but even good Christian men and women lack training on virtues such as courage, which I think the reason why they are silent is because they maybe believe in what's good, but they lack the courage. Okay, And how much is that the real crisis, Nico?
A question that I've been pondering for years now. Am I courageous because I have faith, or does my faith comes from courage? And this is something that I battle with all the time. I believe the more that I think about it, the more I think I'm getting wiser. I think the wiser I become, the more I realize that my courage is based in my faith. I have so much faith that I'm doing what God wants me to do that it gives me strength. It gives me courage. So I will ask all the Christians out there, can you really have faith if you're not courageous?
That's a
And I
hard
don't think
question.
so. My answer to you is no. I will challenge anybody out there. Can you really say that you have faith if you're not courageous?
Well, it's a lukewarm faith. Okay, I'm going to give you an example. It's a tough question. I'm going to give you an example. So my
Yep.
husband was not a practicing in his faith at all when I met him. I was, to me it was so important. But what he did was he was training under a lot of, Tony Robbins, personal development. He was a golfer. He had a level of pursuit of excellence and
Yep.
maybe your martial arts, like what you're saying, that really what to me was so attractive. It was like he didn't have any faith, but to be honest, I met a lot of Christian men, Catholic men who had faith but had no courage. And the reason why I'm pointing this out because when he actually met our Lord, it was like fire because he already had the formation of courage. So here's my question. In our faith, I feel like there's the human and the spiritual, the human training and the spiritual training. And I feel like Jesus was both human and divine. But so often, what I have experienced is there's a lot of theology and spiritual formation, but not the human formation, not the training of just basic discipline, saying no to yourself, courage, speaking up when you feel like there's an injustice from a very human level. That is so void because of our education system, but also the infrastructure in our culture. But I think that you're back to your question, do you have faith because you had courage and courage of faith? I think maybe because now you have both and it fuels your fire. And the reason why I say that I see a lot of faithful men who really don't have training and courage and they become the problem. And
But do
they
they
can
really
spit
have
out
faith?
theology,
But
then
do they
you're
really have
yeah, you may
faith?
be right. I would
Because
argue.
one of the things to remember is I did not find my faith through reading the Bible. I started reading the Bible because I found God.
That's a great.
Hold on, let me rephrase that. I started reading the Bible because God found me, but I was at the bottom of a hole. So, to go back to what I was saying earlier, I lost my career over this. I lost everything. I lost my house. I lost all the money I've ever made, I've ever invested over what happened during COVID. The decision that I took to not get vaccinated when 91% of Canadians are vaccinated made me lose everything. I lived in the city. I wore a suit every day and I was in front of customers day in, day out. That's all I did. I literally trained in the morning, went to work, and I was training fighters at night. Those were my days, rinse and repeat. That's what I did. Overnight, I lost everything. I couldn't teach. I couldn't go to the gym, and I didn't have a job anymore. When this started being challenged, and we were under lockdowns, and I lived alone back then. I didn't meet my wife until during COVID. But
Wow.
when it first started, I was in a bubble. I was alone, so I couldn't do anything. I was still
Mm.
able to work, but I was working from home. So I decided to get rid of my place and I moved to the woods. I lived in the woods for 2.5 years, and a year and a half of that was by myself. I was there with my dog.
Like a
I
monk.
had no friend. Yeah. And when I say in the woods, it's literally the most Canadian things you'll ever hear. I was log house, top of a mountain, in the middle of the woods. Like literally my neighbor, I saw him more at the grocery store that was 30, 40 minutes away from the house than I did at his house.
You
So this is
retreated
just
from the world.
sure, sure. I did. As an extrovert, that was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I had a calling. Something was telling me to do that. I
Wow.
bought the house on a whim a few years prior. Something was telling me you will need a house in the middle of nowhere one day. You should buy it. Just put it on Airbnb. It was paying itself. When I moved there, it had been a year or two since the last time I had been because it was always rented. I didn't have to worry. I had somebody like cleaning it. I was telling her when to go. Next client, done. But by the time I got there, I spent so much time alone that you can't lie to yourself anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where I found God. I found God when there was nothing else. I was alone. My family didn't want to talk to me anymore. My friends weren't talking to me
Because of the
anymore.
vaccination?
Oh, yeah. My own mother told me that I deserved to lose my career for not taking the vaccine.
So sorry.
Well, it's not your fault. It's just, I stand up for what I believe in. And there's consequences. No matter what you do, there's consequences to your actions. But when you're doing it because God wants you to do something, you don't get to complain about the consequences. You just do because you're being told to do it.
Yeah. You
And
endure the
that's
cross.
that's what we expect to that's what being a Christian is all about. Try to be like Christ. If you want to be like Christ, guess what? You'll be crucified.
Yeah.
At one point, and this is to go back to what you were saying, can you really be courageous and have faith if you've never been tested to a point where the only thing that makes you that allows you to continue is the fact that you have faith that you're doing the right thing, that
Yeah.
you're following God and you're reading his message, you're understanding his message properly. Because I can tell you, I've been in situations with even my wife where we could afford was rice and beans. And I'm not talking about years ago. I'm talking a year and a half ago. This was our situation. But you know what? We were still giving money to charities. We were still trying to help others. We were still volunteering because we believed in giving back. My wife met me. I had it all. I had investment house. I had money. I had investments.
That's
And
crazy.
she's been with me losing it all. And now I'm rebuilding what I had, doing something completely different. But this is all because of God.
That is
I'm on
just
that path because of him.
you just went there. I mean, you went to the story of every prophet. The detachment that the Lord puts those that He loves. Question for you: how did your wife react to sort of that season of your life? Because in some ways, it was maybe the most challenging, maybe the most, where you feel most vulnerable. How was her reaction and what was that like for her from a woman's perspective? You see your man kind of really struggle.
I don't know that I can answer that question for her. I can only give you my opinion.
Yeah.
But she expects me to lead. That doesn't make me right. Because I will make mistakes. I'm just human, right? But what's interesting, and I told her that I needed that to happen in order to have 100% confidence in my wife. I come from a place where my father left when I was 14 years old. He disappeared. I was raised by a single mother that did not the greatest of jobs at making sure that I become a good man. So I've always had trust issues, right? And seeing my wife going from me having it all to me losing it all, and she's still around. We just had a kid. Eli was born 7 weeks ago. We're nowhere close to where I was before. But she stuck with me the whole way through. So she'll have whatever she wants. She'll have, not because I don't care about money anymore. I went from being money driven to being God driven. Money comes and goes. I've realized that a long time ago. It's fine as long as God takes care of them. I don't have anything else to ask. But it needed to happen for me. I know if she wishes deep down that it never happened because she did not need that to know that she wanted to spend
Sure.
the rest of her life with me. But I did. So unfortunately for her, it needed to happen. But she stuck by me. So
What a gift. I
can
mean,
you
it's a
can a man
testimony of
ask
her.
more?
It's a testimony of her. And it's like the most
Yeah.
dangerous man is the man who's got nothing to lose.
Mhm.
And I think that you really find men of courage, which is, by the way, if you ask, women, what's an attractive thing about a man, it's their courage in spite being torn down. And I think that because there's such a courage deficit all over the world, not just Canada, in America, there's really no training on courage. Like there's no basic of how do you speak up when there's an injustice? What do you say when a teacher is actually not actually right? Because it's being punished in our in the infrastructure of our school system. I mean, it's just such a, I can't say, but I'll say it's demonic. The stripping away of masculinity, which is essential, the oriented towards courage, is so stripped away that the only thing to say it is a demonic act that robs, the family. Because if you've got weak men, you've got a society like, Canada, or like we've always, and we're not free from it, you know? Where do
Go back to
you,
what I was saying earlier. What's the second stage of any Marxist regime? To disconnect, you disconnect God from the people, replace it by big government, by big brother. Second step is to remove the men from the family, make the men weak. Because who resists governments? It's not women.
yeah.
It's men. Men die defending their country, defending their families, defending their principles. Not women. It's always, the expression kids and women first? That doesn't come from women, don't say that. It's men that say this
Yeah.
because we know our place.
It's
We
just,
know that that's our job. My wife expects me to. I'm a martial artist. I've been training in this for more than 20 years. I'm very proficient with firearms, with guns, with knives, name it. She expects me to take a bullet for her. She expects me that if somebody walks in here, I will do whatever it takes to protect her and my children. That's my job as a man.
well,
That,
how
but
many men cannot say that though, Nico? I mean, as
no,
a woman, it's like the comfort and the peace in knowing that a man is going to lay down his life for me, just as Christ laid down for his church, is irreplaceable. It really is. And now I think you've got a lot of single women who can't find good men because good men doesn't equal strong men. I mean, however you want to call it, but good as in they're nice, but they're weak. They're incapable of feeling as they're defending the women. And I just wonder that what just goes back to full circle, how much of the crisis of becoming almost a communist country is a crisis of weakened men because we've already taken the men out, and so, which to me has been a byproduct of the radical feminist movement. Sure, men could have stood up, but honestly, we've had such a Marxist infused feminist agenda that they have emasculated men. The several generations are emasculated and they don't even know it. And it's a real tragedy because we almost became communists because men were so sensitive. I mean, it's just, and I don't know how to, like, what do you say? I guess is my next question. How do we solve this crisis? I mean, seriously, Nico, like, where do we begin to be able to say, how can we build men up with courage from a human level, from a spiritual level? Like, where should we begin in America, in Canada, all over the world?
men need to lead.
How do they learn
Men
to lead?
by being shown by other strong men.
Yeah.
Men need to take their rightful place as not only the father of their children, the leader of their families, but also the mentors that other young men need. The reason I discovered martial arts in my 20s when I went back to school, when I started hitting the gym, because I was bullied when I was younger. I got my ass beaten a few times and I didn't know what to do. I was a coward. I did not know how to defend myself, and that sticks in the back of your head. You can act tough all you want, but when it comes down to it, you don't know what you know that you don't know. You know that you're a coward.
Yeah.
So I started doing martial arts, and the next thing you know, I was fighting. Not because I wanted to, because it scared me. Because my coach saw something in me to say, "Oh, bro, you need to fight. You need to start fighting. You need to step in that ring." And next thing you know, I was amateur North American champion at 165 pounds. But this was never the plan. The plan was just to learn how to defend myself. But it's being around strong men
Yeah.
that showed me that I was a lot stronger than I thought. Having men see something in me that I did not know was there.
Wow.
And
That's so
this
profound.
is why I love martial arts, because martial art allows me to teach young men how to become strong. If you knew how many relationships were built off of bloody mats with younger men when I was still teaching before COVID, you'd be on the ground, you just finished sparring, you just finished a great session, and those young men start asking questions because their body is tired, their mind is able to
It's
run
open.
properly. Yeah, because men and women are very different when it comes to the way that our mind works. I go to the gym 5 6 times a day, 6 times a week. Still, I'm in my mid 40s because it helps me think. It clears up my mind because
How?
I'm very hyperactive like most men,
Mhm.
but it's insane to see the connection when men just finish doing men things like punching each other in the face, how it opens up the conversation, how you can have a heart to heart with a man because you have respect for that man, because you know he has something to teach you, he has something to show you, and he's going to be there for you when things really get hard. And that's what most men don't have anymore.
They
We
don't.
don't have that partnership of strong men. They're not
Camaraderie.
surrounded. And it's vilified today to say, women, stay out of my circle. I'm around men. Move away. You don't belong here.
Mhm.
Men are allowed to be around other men just to learn what it is to be a man, and that will make them better husband, better
Mhm.
fathers, better brothers, better grandfather, better everything.
Well, I think good women who understand men know how to do that. I mean, know how to be able to give space to their spouse or to be able to do that. But that's often the problem that we solve in the women's school is today women don't know how to be a woman. And it sounds so crazy, Nico, but to think about it, women have been told that in order to be equal, they needed to be like men. So women today are really trying to be like men. So they have no idea how it is to be a woman. They don't understand their capacity for receptivity, to receive love of a man, to receive. That's the way God designed our body. We receive and then we nurture. The idea of a woman knowing how to nurture is so foreign. Women don't even know how to talk to a man. Women don't know how to compliment a man. Women don't know how to cook for a man. Women don't know how to study their men. I mean, this is such a robbery of femininity that what women think is strong is to have that status, is to have that achievement. And they've become like men. I tell women all the time, you walk in as a woman, if you understand the strength of a woman where you're not trying to be a man, you will raise a level of respect that you really want. But women don't know it, Nico. Like they have no idea the reverence for their sexuality. Women don't even know their fertility. That's how bad we've been conditioned to be like men that we have no idea how to be a woman. It's
Yet
one of
who
these
holds our
foreign
family
concepts.
together?
Pardon me?
Who holds Yet who holds family together? It ain't men.
Correct.
It's always a matriarch.
Yeah.
There's always one woman in every single extended family that holds it together.
But you
And if
know
it wasn't
why?
for her, that family would be broken.
Yes. But you know why? Our brains have more.
Your nurturer.
Correct. The active part of our brain actually sees so many things. We're actually connected where men by their brains, and Dr. Amen did a brain scan of just the difference between male and female brain. People kind of may think it's controversial, but under a microscope, it's like women have a lot more going on in the frontal lobe because they're connecting everything. But even that, I'll tell you this, women, because they've never been trained how to manage their mind, women today are living off their emotions instead of actually using their emotions as a source to connect people with strength. I mean, think about maybe not you, but your grandmother who never complained about the dishes, they worked, and then they put food on the table and they did hard things, they had to pick up water. And today we have women who are like, motherhood is so hard. I mean, sure, there's hard moments, but what we consider hard is that there's dishes and there's the baby's crying, and so the mom is crying. We have forgotten the strength of a woman, that little things have weakened us. What about the pillar of our home? Our homes have become so chaotic, and we, by the way, have glorified this hot mess mama movement as though our homes are supposed to be disordered. God is not a God of disorder. Our homes are supposed to mimic the church. It's this invitation. How many children leave the church because their home feels as though it's a prison? Why? Because the woman is the one that is actually creating the culture in her home. When a woman is hijacked, she's stressed, she's anxious, guess what? Everyone else is. But when a woman understands that her capacity for nurture is so important that she changes the culture of her home, she's going to understand the magnitude of the gift of being a woman that God designed her. Women don't know that. They've been so robbed of their femininity because in order to have equality, you needed to be like men. And what do men go for? Status. What are women going for? Status. And it's unfulfilling. They're so unfulfilled.
And it's not even attractive to
It's
men.
so, I tell women, I say, what's the most attractive thing about a woman? Her capacity to nurture. It literally melts a man. And women try to be like men. They talk like a man, they dress like a man. And it's like, you are missing the very thing you're aching for. And it's the love of a man. You
because
know,
they think it's weakness. They've been brought up to believe that this is weakness, that they, the feminist movement had about four phases. We want to have the same rights as men. We want to be equal as men in society. We want to become men. And now men are
we don't need
becoming
men.
women.
I mean, it's just, but
It's
it's illogical. Once again, and it goes back to, I think the elephant in the room is our education system. And I say this, as a mother of 8 children, we have an education system that is genderless and godless. We don't
but it
talk
starts
about.
at home.
You're absolutely right, but also because of what you said, the separation of state and culture. I mean, church and state. I mean that we don't have Bibles in our school system, but also there's no moral compass in our school system, which means that when we talk to the children, it's like everyone's genderless. You teach a boy the same way you teach a girl. You cannot teach a boy the same way as a girl. Like you just can't. Like 80% of children that are labeled ADHD are boys because they're supposed to sit through circle time. I'm like, boys are not made for circle time. Girls are. Boys learn side by side. They learn by movement. That's the way God made them. They need to build society. But we have labeled our boys, you know, dangerous, incapable because they're just acting in harmony with who God designed them to be. So it's a systemic issue, and it takes people like you who's going to raise the flag of courage to say, I'm not signing up for this. So I want to pivot into the conversation and do you want
Before you
something to
go to
follow? Yeah.
school, before you get away from school, though, I strongly believe that men and boys and girls should be segregated. There should be schools for boys, schools for women until they graduate high school. After high school, whatever, but until then, because boys and girls are not the same.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, 70-ish%, I think it's 70 to 75% of teachers are women.
80.
Women do not understand. See, there you go. So women do not understand what it is to be a boy because they're not men. They've never been through it. So they expect boys to act like little girls.
Yes.
And when they don't, they give them medication for the ADHD. And yet, I'm not sure of the latest statistics, but do you know that most schools in the U.S. have removed, how do you call it, phys ed from their from their
No,
system,
I didn't know that. I know they
which
removed
is
home economics, phys ed, as in like PE.
yeah.
That's
A
insane.
lot of schools in the US and in Canada are
I'll look that
completely
up.
removing it. They're removing the play outside period, where when I was a kid, it was rough time. It was smacking each other
Yeah.
around, pushing each other, playing rough housing, as we call it. They're removing all the physical aspect in school because little girls don't need it. So you have women teaching boys how to become little girls. And if they don't, they stuff them, they fill them with medication. And then you wonder why boys are feminine
Or
growing
emasculate.
up,
Yeah.
why men are feminine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
And
they
by
were
the
taught
yeah,
from a young age that that rage that you have within yourself, that
courage. Yeah.
testosterone that you have within yourself is wrong. Not only is it wrong, but you're toxic. Not only are you toxic, but we don't need you.
Yeah.
Not only don't we need you, we don't want you.
It's so
This
sad.
is what little boys are being told by their own mothers, not by a woman down the street. No, no. Their own mothers are telling them that they cannot be men because we don't need men anymore. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
It's insane. And
And
it goes back to mothers don't know how to be a mother. I mean, how to be a woman. Therefore, they can't recognize how a boy.
And the funniest thing is there's studies that came out from University of Ottawa years ago that was showing that 60 to 70% of students in the medical field, not nurses, the medical field as a whole were women. And the trend is going up and up and up. And when you think about it, who would you rather have as a nurse or as a doctor? A woman or a guy? I'd rather a woman than a dude because the woman is nurturing by nature. Do you think it's a coincidence that 60 to 70% of students in medicine are women? No, they're nurtured by
Nature.
nature.
By
Women
orientation.
care about people, men care about things.
Yeah.
That's why 90% of people that are studying engineering are men.
Yeah.
I worked as an engineer for 12 years. You know how many women were in my field? One. Over
But they're
the four
trying
different.
to. It's a, they have this STEM program, and it's like they can't fill it up because women just don't want it. It's not like it's not
It's not
available.
natural.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not because they're smart enough. It's not because they can't do it. It just goes against their own nature.
Yeah, yeah. And it's the same idea with putting women in the front lines of war. Like, I mean, but it's so baffling to me that women are
No,
advocating for this, and it goes back
no.
to they don't know who they are. Like, we just want to compete with men. We want to have the same status as men. So I want to be on the front lines of war because I'm going to prove to you that I'm just good enough as men. And I'm just thinking to women, if you just embrace who you are and stop fighting men and be complimentary, you will actually find fulfillment. And here's sort of my take home point: women can never find true fulfillment outside of their nature, just as men can, because you can never find fulfillment outside of the way God designed you. And so they're fighting their nature, medicating themselves through it, and causing a lot of mental illness because they're fighting the very nature of who they are, suppressing their fertility. And I mean, obviously I'm speaking to the choir, but at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we have a duty to expose and give language to the crisis, which is what you're doing, in so many ways, because courage breeds courage, Nico. And honestly, and if I'm honest with you, I, as a woman of faith, was busy raising my children. It's not like I was saying I want to be in the front lines of the war, of our cultural war. Like, it, I was trying to create a home. So in some ways, I was part of the problem unknowingly. I don't know if we can afford to do that anymore. Like, I feel like women need to do their part to be able to stand up for good men, stand up for our children, stand up for motherhood, because I think we can't afford not to anymore in our culture. And I think women, I'm like, where were the good women when radical or modern feminism emasculated men? Where were the good women? Where was I, Nico? I hold myself accountable. I stayed quiet, and it wasn't because I sort of believe it, but in some ways it was sort of like, why did I stand up for the good men in my life? Because they were, and so you know what? Not all men are like that, and but I think that we have the last 5 years, if anything, awakened our hearts, and it taught us the importance of courage, that you're either lukewarm or you're going to be in the fight, and I think that's where we are. And I think the battle is ahead of us and is in front of us. And okay, so I'm going to pivot to the question: how do you do it with somebody who you have a 2-hour call, who is an atheist and who's completely different beliefs as you? What is that like? Because that is a courageous move. I would see it as mentally exhausting, which is why, thank God for men like you who are doing what needs to do to hash that out so we can listen through it. What is that like?
Well, I'm gonna answer your question with two different answers because I just came back about 3 weeks ago. I was invited to San Francisco to go sit down like a one-on-one. The episode's not out yet. I'm very curious to see what it's if the guy made me justice or not, because it'd be easy to turn me into a monster. But I was invited to go sit down as a men's right activist to speak with a lesbian mother that is raising her son with another woman in the house, and
Hmm.
herself was raised by two women, by a lesbian couple. So I was there to kind of debate her on why this was wrong. And this to me is just simple. Like, to me, it's just I need to do those things because I have the strength to do it, I have the knowledge to do it, and I have the will to do it because somebody else is telling me I need to. I don't necessarily want to do it, but I'm being told I'm good at it, so I might as well do it. It's not a mistake. It's not a coincidence. But I never tried to change her mind.
Hmm.
My goal was never to change her. My goal is to change the person that is listening to the episode
Hmm.
later on. Same thing as when I was on Jubilee as middle ground last year, where I was debating 6 feminists. I was never trying to debate the feminists. I was speaking to the people behind the camera,
Yeah.
the people that would be listening, because I'm not going to change their minds.
Hmm.
Same thing as I was not changing. I said to that woman, I don't think you should be legally allowed to have children because children are going to start at a disadvantage because you remove men from the equation, and men cannot be replaced by proxy by having a cousin that's involved. No, They need to be in the house every single day with that child, just like I am with my son. My wife does not handle my son the way I handle him. I handle him in a very different. I'm a lot rougher with him. I'm not saying disconnected, but I'm already establishing ground rules.
Yeah.
And he's only seven. Him crying does not mean I'm picking him up. My wife is, oh,
And that's her
but
role.
of course it is. That's what you want. But so my goal when I went there was not to convince her. In the
Mm.
same way with my co-host every day, my goal is not to convince
Mm.
him. My goal is to open the conversation with him to show that we're a lot more alike than we are not.
Mm.
We agree on about 60, let's say 70%. If you look at the bell curve shows you that most of the people are somewhere in the middle. So
Mhm.
they will agree on most things, on about 70% of things. So instead of me focusing on what we don't agree on, we focus on what we agree on. And
Mm.
then when there's something that comes up that we don't agree with, we do it respectfully through civil discourse
Wow.
by both proving, by both putting our facts on the table. And that's what I did with her in San Francisco. By the end, that woman went from absolutely hating me because I looked her in the eyes and I said, "You should not be allowed to raise a kid in a lesbian relationship."
Mhm.
She went from hating me to wanting to have a drink with me
It's
afterwards.
a great story. You told me that. I said, that is a testimony of your faith in action. No, sincerely, because somehow you made her feel welcomed in spite the fact that you were having a difficult conversation. I mean, that is the Christian way. You know,
That's the only
just,
reason I do it.
but I
I'll
mean,
be very, very personal with you. That's something I've never said on camera before, but my mother and I do not have a good relationship.
mm,
And I've been praying to God that my son would kind of bring back that relationship with my mother. Because if she wants to have grandchildren, it's going to be through me. Because my sister does not want children. She's a massive feminist that do not want to be a mother. She does not want to have children. So if my mother wants grandchildren, it's going to have to be through me.
mm,
And we've had some really bad conversations over the years. There's a lot of bad things that has happened between the two of us, but because I'm a Christian, I invited her to be back to be part of
wow.
his life. She hasn't met him yet because she's too we're not allowing people to touch him, or it's me, it's my wife and I, and the rest of the people can wait till my wife feel comfortable with it. But she will be invited to see him. She will be invited to be part of his life because that's the Christian thing to do,
Yeah.
not because I want to, because that's the Christian thing to do, and that's more important than what I want.
Yeah. I mean, that is virtue in action to do the thing that you're called to do, but not necessarily what you want to do. I mean, isn't that the Christian way? Isn't, like,
I believe so.
but
At
it's
least to me it
easier.
is. To me it is.
Well, it is. Well, I just celebrate you because I really do, from my experience in you in a short amount of time that I've met you, is that I think your training and your wound from, not having a father, from maybe being bullied, from getting yourself into trouble, all that I feel like our Lord did not waste. All that, you're using it now, Nico, for your courage, for your testimony, for your strength. And I love that Jordan Peterson talks about meekness is not the inability to not become a monster, but its ability to be humble, even though you've got great capacity, and it's sheathing your strength. And so that is what you're doing. You're using it to be able to bring truth, you know, to Canada, but maybe to the world.
Most of my content is recorded in the US. Like most of the all the big platforms that I've been on, they're all Americans. Because
Really.
today the problem doesn't matter that it's from Canada or the US. We're so the same in a lot of those areas.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot, like there's a province in Canada that's Alberta that is very Christian. It's very conservative, it's very Christian. So it's similar to your South. They're very close to the cowboys from the South.
Mm.
But the rest of Canada is very atheist. It's very separated from the church, the religion. God is not part of the answer, at least that people believe in Canada. So there's a lot of similarities between Canada and the US. And what's true in the US is also true in Canada. And That's why I'm always like this type of content. I talk about mostly Canadian politics, but when it comes to masculinity, when it comes to Christianity, when it comes to doing being godly, it's always Americans. I'm always talking to Americans because unfortunately it doesn't resonate with Canadians yet, or at least it resonates in a very small way. So I'm hoping that recording with an atheist every day, people ask, why do I do it? I do it because it's a Christian thing to do. I'm a bridge builder. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a preacher. Never will I be one. But if people want to know why I do what I do, why I get all the hate that I do and I can still deal with it, is because I'm a Christian, is because I have the power of Christ behind me. He's
Yeah.
the only reason I do it. At the end of the day, if I did not have all the past, as you said, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today. I wouldn't be able to handle what comes with it because most people don't understand what it means to be hated by thousands and thousands of people on a daily basis, seeing those comments. How many death threats have I received through messages? And that'll never stop me. That's a motivation to me. If
I
I'm
just
pissing off
love
people,
that.
that means I'm doing something right.
Yeah. Well, that is a real testimony. That's what I mean. Your experience of the pain you've endured, you've really used it to build the courage for you to be, to be crucified. Because for me, to be honest, like the hardest part of the work that I do is that I have to endure the criticism of other people who disagree with me. And my heart is tender as a woman. And you know why I lean to? My husband. And I'm able to go to him and say, and he's able to say, it's not a big deal. He has this stoicism that encapsulates my heart and say, in those moments, I'm safe and that I have to keep going. But without him, honestly, like Nico, women are made to be tender, and we want to be tender, but without a man's strength, I don't think that we would have the courage that is actually ordained, for women, not the courage the way men have, but the courage to be able to elevate culture, the courage to be able to speak the truth in a way that only a woman can, and that's what I feel sort of hopeful for, and maybe wrap this up with, I think the vision for the future is to bring God back into the world, but also to bring our sexuality back in its ordered state. That we somehow have divorced the fact that we don't know what a man and a woman is as divorced from the problem in our culture. I think it's precisely the problem that we don't know how to be a man or a woman. We've been so emasculated, and men have become so masculine that the problems are actually being exacerbated. And to me, it's so simple. You do the martial arts, right? Women need training on how to be a woman. We need to know how to honor men. We need to know how to honor our value. We need to know how to cook. We know how to clean, how to plan, how to pivot, how to create conversations that have depth and meaning. We need to learn how to have reverence for every human life. It sounds common sense, but just because we are born a woman, it doesn't mean we know how to be one. And that's where we are. And I also think that it has to be both, Nico. Like I can't just work on sort of this movement of women. That's what the feminist movement did, and then you've got this sort of this masculine apart from each other. It's got to be a dialogue between both. And can you imagine? I feel like what Satan hates the most is a couple that's working together, understanding who they are. What if what Satan hates the most is a dialogue between the masculine and the feminine, and that becomes the new movement to counter communism, radical feminism, Hollywood, the promiscuity. I think that's how we solve and move forward, is imagine a complementarity movement. I mean, it'll be an unstoppable force to save civilization. What are your thoughts on that?
Culture lives and die with the family. Plain
Yes,
and simple.
it's the
There's a
foundation.
the beauty about this is I never try to convince people to become Christians. I want just people to understand why I do what I do, where I find my courage. It comes through my faith. But nobody can disagree, even on facts, that men and women are not needed to raise proper children, that the best chances that children have is being raised by a man and a woman, to have a father and a mother in the house. You don't even need to believe in God to believe that. If the facts can convince you that this is correct, the next step is to look why that is, because we were made this way.
Yeah.
But you don't even need to go there in order to convince people that men and women are required in the household to give the best opportunity to their children.
Yeah. Yeah. And if we live out our sexuality so beautifully with the dignity of both the masculine and the feminine in the family, it will always point towards God. And that's the invitation, is a redemption of family life. But I think, the redemption of family has to be first a redemption of what it means to be a man and a woman. What's your advice to the world today as we look at the state of our culture? If, you were saying, okay, cast a vision, Nico, what do you want to see 10 years from now? And what should we do as a culture to bring forth that vision of flourishment?
I just want men to take their rightful place, to step up their game and be courageous. Because at the end of the day, men, the Bible asks men to lead. If men are not leading, what happens? Women try to lead.
Yeah.
And look at where we are right now.
Disaster.
But that's where it starts. So as much as we can blame feminism, as much as I can blame liberalism to say they're all the problem, yet I let it happen. That's what you said earlier,
Yep.
right? We have to take account for our mistakes and say that we weren't present. We weren't, for whatever the reason, we're busy, we had life, we were building a family, whatever it is, we still need to take accountability and say, it is our fault. We need to bring it back. And it starts, I know as a man, it needs to start with courage. And all I can do is be the man I want my son to become. And I need to lead by example. And hopefully I get to do that for all the other men out there. And I get to show women at the same time that there's still men out there that believe in being fathers and being leaders and being the person their family needs to be. Because most men think that being courageous means you're taking on the world. Just being a father is courageous. Just a society is a bunch of communities put together. Don't try to change the world. Try to change your community, and your community changes at home first. Start with your home, then this leaks through to your community. And if a bunch of men and women change their household, change their community, you change culture.
Yeah. Which really means that both men and women need to take ownership of
It's all
their
about accountability.
accountability of developing themselves in a life of virtue, and that's what I think it boils down to, is that we've forgotten God and we're not living a virtuous life. And so, but I am hopeful. I try to stay hopeful because I do think that men like you are rising out of pain, out of the struggles, and those become the greatest leaders. And honestly, I'm hopeful because I feel like, how do I say this? I feel like I can move forward knowing that there's men out there that will protect. I mean, it's sincerely, like I know, even if we go into this movement of feminine and masculine revival, I'm like, it's okay. I know it from a personal level because my husband is, my fortress in some ways, obviously God. But imagine if we do it together, then a man can basically create that space of protection. And then we can conquer it. Conquer, the immorality in our culture. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your faith. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your wounds that have become the seed to your mission. Where can people find you, Nico, and as you continue to become a voice of leadership and courage in the world today?
At real Nico Lagan everywhere. It's the same everywhere.
Great. Thank you, Nico. I'm so grateful to know you. I'm grateful for who you are. And to our listeners, God bless you all. We'll send you all the information where you can find Nico. And remember, become the woman that God created you to be.